Another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. Hope everybody had a fantastic Valentine's, we'll try that again, Valentine's Day weekend, as well as the Indy 500. Big weekend when you take those two things together. And of course, Valentine's, I guess it's how you play that one, right? Let's do some housekeeping. You can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. That's how you get into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. And of course, the station does stream to the TuneIn app 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which means you can take us anywhere on your device. Great feature to have. Tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do that, no questions asked. I do stream the show. Today we're coming from the Cameo studios, so the Cameo cam is on, which means you can go to the station's Facebook page, YouTube channel, or my social media at Joe Mangie Show. That's Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, Facebook, X, Rumble, all live. Many ways to listen, many ways to watch. Ted Hay is behind the glass flying the board back at HQ today. He'll get you set up and into the studio at 508-871-7000. Takes care of most of the housekeeping. And we have a lot of news all the time. As far as I can tell, nothing seriously has broke on the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping, as we're in our third week of that. There seems to be some turf war over this lab because the Pima Sheriff's Office using a lab they've used for decades out of Florida. And of course, the first reaction when you hear that is, why wouldn't you take advantage of the finest forensic lab on the planet in Quantico and the FBI? We'll see how that plays out. And I'm sure everybody will know the moment anything breaks on that. They'll break into the news. You'll watch your X feed. You know the drill there. Meanwhile, back here in New England, they had this tragic shooting in Rhode Island. So all those conversations are coming out, right? We're going to have those. But this is also another situation where we find the shooter is someone who is identifying as transgender and has gone through a lot of the procedure. And I got curious about this because what percentage in the last few years, I'm not talking about decades, because decades ago, even if somebody had gender dysphoria, they didn't have a name for it. It wasn't clinically diagnosed, and it wasn't something we talked about. So in the last few years, we're looking at about 12% of mass shootings, and some of the ones like Charlie Kirk's straight out one person killed, but targeted person, is about 12% of those shooters versus about maybe 6 or 7% of the population at best is identifying as transgender. So that's just the discrepancy in that percentage. That's interesting. It's worth discussion and examination, right? So we're still processing this heartbreaking news just across the border there in Rhode Island, that on the 17th, this took place. So it was just chaos erupted. It was the Lynch Arena in Pawtucket. Of course, I love watching the national news anchors pronounce Pawtucket, or for that matter, announce anything in New England. Love it when they try to read the word Worcester. But Pawtucket, during a high school hockey game on the senior night the other night, 56-year-old man named Robert Dorgan, he also went by Roberta, Now, he had undergone gender reassignment surgery in 2020, but he opened fire in what police are calling a targeted family dispute. So apparently it wasn't, I'm going to go shoot up the ice rink. I'm going to shoot up the restaurant. Remember Maine, the one who shot up the bar up there and hid into the woods? This was targeted to family because of a dispute. 2 family members who were attending the hockey game were killed. One at the scene, the mother of the person they were there to see play, a sibling who later died at the hospital. 3 others, including more relatives and a family friend, were critically injured and rushed to a Rhode Island hospital. Now, witnesses heard over a dozen shots. And those are always tough when you get the witness. People, same shooting, same locale, and often the investigator is going to have discrepancy. Witness A heard 12 shots. Witness B heard 9. Witness C, it was over 20. They don't really know. It's very random, or very seldom do you get consensus on things like that. That's just the way witnesses work. But they said they heard over a dozen shots, sending players, fans scrambling for safety. But a good Samaritan stepped in to subdue the shooter, who then reportedly, the shooter, then took his own life. Court records paint a picture of long, simmering tensions here. A messy divorce, where the ex-wife initially cited the surgery. Well, come on. You marry a man, and years after you're married, they identify as a woman and actually have surgery done. I'd be surprised if that marriage actually survived that. And I do know people who've done this later in life, and they're still together. So not everyone's going to end it. It happens. It happens. So messy divorce with the ex-wife. And there were even assault allegations against Dorgan's own mother. It's a devastating reminder of how personal conflicts can explode into this public horror. But this isn't an isolated incident, because when we zoom out, just days ago on the 11th, there was an article in the Post, a piece that ran, saying that the media is gaslighting us, that there's a troubling pattern. Mass shooters who identify as transgender or struggle with gender dysphoria. And think about that. Recent shootings, British Columbia. All right, this was an 18-year-old, Jesse Van Rutselaar, biologically a male, transitioning since age 12. I'm going to pause on that for a second. Age 12. Now, I know kids mature earlier today. Everybody kind of gets that. You talk about it. But can you really be transitioning? There's a lot of 12-year-olds who have no interest in gender, much less sex, boyfriends or girlfriends at that age. Again, that's a whole nother discussion. And I've covered it here on the show. We have situations, $2 million just awarded to a detransgender who had the transgender surgery, now is transing back because it was a mistake in the first place. But we had that person, that 18-year-old, killed 9 people at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. And this piece ties this to other cases, like remember the Nashville shooter who took 6 lives at a Christian school, or Robin Westman in Minneapolis, say no more, right? Who targeted a Catholic school and a church. This piece argues these aren't coincidences, but signs of untreated mental distress, depression, isolation, even autism spectrum issues. That's the other kind of common thread that we've seen in some of these shooters, is they're on the spectrum somewhere. They also have self-harm as a common trait. And these get overlooked in the rush to affirm identities without addressing the root causes. But after a while, you have to address some of these. It merits a conversation, does it not? And let's be clear, not all transgender people are violent. The vast majority are just living their lives, trying to live their lives and be left alone for the most part. And they face enough challenges without being painted with a broad brush here. But gender dysphoria, defined as this distress from a mismatch between one's gender identity and sex assigned at birth. And that terminology, assigned at birth, I don't, is it God, or does he leave it to an angel to say that one, we're going to make that a man, we're going to make that one a girl? It's your DNA. It is what it is. You're not assigned. You were born one gender or one sex or the other. But they renamed from gender identity disorder, is what we used to call it, in the DSM-5 to reduce stigma. We now call it gender incongruence in the ICD-11. But here's the thing. In any other scenario, if we saw a cluster of mass shootings sharing a common thread, like a specific medication, similar backgrounds, or condition, we'd demand a study, we'd demand an investigation, at least a serious look. But why not here? Data from sources like the Gun Violence Archive shows that out of over 5,700 mass shootings since 2013, only about 5 involved transgender perpetrators. Yet in recent high school cases, pride profile cases, the overlap with gender dysphoria stands out. It is coincidence, or is there something worth exploring? I think a conversation is merited, and probably a little more examination to this. But folks, we have to take the first break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And our text line is, in fact, up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Text it like you want anyone else. It appears on the screen here in studio in real time. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Stick with us, folks. If you've ever worried about a parent or a loved one eating well, here's a simple solution. Heart to Home Meals delivers great tasting, ready-to-eat frozen meals made with seniors in mind. With over 150 choices, it's easy to find meals that fit different tastes and dietary needs. There's no subscription and no minimum order. And delivery is always free. Heart to Home Meals, a smart, comforting way to make sure good food is always close by. HeartToHomeMeals.com.
Are you tired of the Orwellian speech, the hypocrisy rampant throughout government and within the Beltway? I'm reminding you talk radio is the immune system to the partisan bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. Tune in to Joe Mangiacotti on WCRN 830 AM, where common sense meets common ground. Joe is the conservative voice with a twist, blending a constitutionalist respect for our founding principles with a libertarian's drive for freedom. He's got a unique style that's half constitutionalist, half common sense, and all about empowering you. Just listen to his callers.
Joe, I have to tell you first, I've listened to you a couple of times on your own show here, and I have to tell you, I enjoy listening to you. You have some really good, intelligent, cogent thoughts rather than just the constant monologue of conservative talk that sometimes we get wound up in.
Joe's even-tempered, intelligent approach cuts through the clutter and dives into the issues that matter to you. Join Joe Mangiacotti for Common Sense Conversation for the Common Sense Citizen and discover how logic, truth, and a calm voice can change minds, even those who might disagree at first. It's not just talk, it's a movement. Catch Joe Mangiacotti, WCRN 830 AM.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eddie Arus with the Vascular Care Group. If knee pain is making everyday activities feel like a struggle, and you've been told your only option for relief is major surgery, think again. Genicular artery embolization is a non-surgical outpatient treatment that can dramatically reduce pain and improve mobility. It targets the inflammation that's causing your arthritis knee pain, and best of all, it's performed right in our office. To learn more about living the pain-free life, visit thevascularcaregroup.com with offices in Worcester and Sturbridge, Massachusetts.
All right, folks. So welcome back here to second segment, Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, you can join the conversation for the time we have left together at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. So I'm talking about the shooting that took place in Rhode Island. And it was apparently a family dispute that unfortunately played out at this very public place. And this got me thinking, and clearly some other outlets and so forth, asking the same question. In the last several years, it seems quite often statistically weird that these shooters are dealing with gender dysphoria, or they're transitioned, or there's something going on. In Charlie Kirk's case, this seemed to be a process, living with a boyfriend who was a furry and going through this. So we don't know truthfully what was going on. I think that whole Charlie Kirk situation seemed to get wrapped up, to my opinion, prematurely. And then the actual crime scene, if you didn't know this, I mean, they bulldozed that clean and got rid of the staging that Charlie was on. But that's for another show. So the question becomes, because in the last several years, as I was saying, going into the break here, recent high-profile cases, the overlap of the shooters with gender dysphoria, it stands out. It stands out. And if this was any other thing, and you notice, and I think most of you do this, no, I do, when the news breaks of a shooting, whether it's in FBI, the accepted definition of a mass shooting is 4 victims or more. So there are shootings that are 3 victims or even 1 victim, and they don't get calculated in some of these stats. But when we hear about this, do you not say, what's the deal with the shooter? What do they identify? Because it's become such a common part of this that it should be. And then, of course, most media outlets in the mainstream media and so forth try to gloss over that. Or in the case of a transgender female, the headline will say female, Burlington female, or wherever the person happens to be. And maybe deep down in the, 3/4 of the way through that article, they might point out that this person was born a male. They are a male, but they identify as a female. That's not in the headline. And why is that? Again, that merits a longer conversation, doesn't it? But the fact that statistically, a lot of these shooters are transgender or have even done completed it with surgery. And look across the pond here, right? They've been rethinking this in countries like the UK, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Italy. They've pumped the brakes on hormone therapies for minors with gender dysphoria because the science has told them what we've been swallowing as the narrative is incorrect. And we see these cases coming up now, don't we? And we see parents who have been faced with these really difficult scenarios put in front of them. Here's your minor child who, it seems in any other area of arena, you wouldn't let your children make these decisions for themselves. But you've got doctors telling them either permit your child to have this surgery, start on the hormone therapy, begin the journey, or they'll kill themselves. And so parents who, safe bet, majority of them are not doctors or psychiatrists or psychologists, and you're told, permit this for your child, or the child will probably take their life. In our core DNA programming, when you become a parent, I think most of you know this, who are parents will agree, we're programmed to protect our children. Our lives change when we have our children. We do anything for those children and to protect those children. And if we're told if we don't do this, chances are they're going to take their lives and you're going to do more damage. Totally false. But that's what was peddled for years. That's what we accepted and swallowed. And then the science is coming out because all of that narrative that we were given had no scientific base whatsoever in it. Again, I tell you, you got to go back to the money and these doctors who pushed this stuff because they were looking at years, maybe decades of billing in the pharmaceutical companies with prescribing these hormones, treatment, these drugs they're going to be on that looks good for your account with us, all of that goes. And now the science comes out and says this isn't true. Matter of fact, it's the opposite. The UK case review found the evidence of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones remarkably weak, built on a shaky foundation, leading to restrictions outside research settings. Sweden's National Board of Health and Welfare says the risks outweighs benefits for most youth, prioritizing therapy over the meds. Didn't common sense tell us when you have a teenager saying anything like this, I don't feel comfortable in my own skin? What teenager feels comfortable in their own skin anyway? But again, another conversation. That it's time for therapy and talk over pumping them full of chemicals and hormones and medications that will be fighting the body's own DNA, meaning the blueprint for the body, what it's trying to do in a natural way. Finland urges caution. France's Academy of Medicine warns of unknown side effects. And even Germany reaffirms access, but with multidisciplinary oversight. They're treating gender dysphoria more as a mental health issue, needing a careful psychological support, not automatic medical intervention. Duh. Wasn't that kind of the common sense approach to this all along? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to Mark waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Well, this gentleman or woman, whatever he is, or whatever he says he is or thinks he is, this wasn't his first rodeo, with the police being involved with him and his wife. His wife divorced him because she didn't approve of his quote transition. And all this stuff came, initially it was hours on mainstream media. Before I didn't hear it on mainstream media, but that they didn't report the fact that he was trans. So then they never got around to it. I don't think if you listen to it this morning that they would report the fact that the guy was trans. I had to hear it on AM talk radio. A guy out of Boston. He let the cat out of the bag. Now the cat's out of the bag.
Yep.
That's the point that society has to ask themselves is this. Should a man or a person in his dire straits, who his family is involved in this and all kinds of problems are resulting from the fact that he's transitioning and he's not doing well at it psychologically, and he's having all these kinds of manic eruptions over this. Should he be red flagged? I say yes, he should have been red flagged, just like the guy that went crazy in Framingham. Just like the guy who went nuts with the thinking he was a furry. Remember him and the guy that tried to kill Trump? I mean, the list goes on and on with these people. And when are we going to get around to the red flag laws? Red flag these people and take away their powers or their rights to carry and purchase weapons.
Mark, 100%. We have red flag laws for a purpose, and most law-abiding permit carrying, gun carrying people agree. People that are mentally unstable should not be allowed to purchase weapons, ammunition, and carry concealed firearms. And the question is, how does this happen? Are they afraid to flag a guy like this because of accusations of being bigoted? And no, being transgender or having gender dysphoria on its own might not be enough. But look, I was just citing coming out of the countries in Europe where they have gone to say gender dysphoria is a mental health condition. That any mental health condition does get a flag, at least here in Massachusetts. And when you fill out you get it, and then every 7 years you got to do your renewal. It's right there, Mark, on the have you been treated for mental illness? Are you on any medication? So yes, it would have warranted. Go ahead.
You remember the guy up in Lewiston, Maine? I forgot about him.
The bar, right?
He was another one. He was another one. And the guy right here in Massachusetts, I believe it was in the Framingham or the town over. I forget the name of the town over. What's the name of the town over?
Well, there's Framingham, Natick, Sherburne, Ashland. I don't know which one.
Got a big mall there.
Natick Mall.
The town,
Shoppers World.
Not Natick. It's right next to Framingham, a little bit north of it. It's got the big mall there.
Marlboro? Oh, Solomon Pond, maybe.
Marlboro, man. Yeah, Marlboro, man. Remember Marlboro, man? Huh?
Yeah. And I think you're thinking of Solomon Pond Mall. But, Mark, we're final thought real quick. We're against the clock.
Well, I just made my point. You know what I mean? All of these people should have been red flagged, and they weren't because the media is afraid to use the word trans and this and that. And this and
I agree, Mark. Thank you for the call. We're against the clock. I got to drop you there. Hold you there, folks. Stick with us. We'll be back for the second half, 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We're keeping it dry for the afternoon with mostly cloudy skies. High temperatures will be in the upper 30s to about 40 degrees. Tonight we'll dip back into the 20s with some clouds around, otherwise quiet conditions. And then tomorrow during the second half of the day, we are expecting rain and snow to develop and snow to stick on Wednesday night. That accumulation is going to add up to about a coating to 2 inches along the coastline and 2 to 4 inland. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Boston, are you ready for a show that's unique and different? Blind and Beyond Radio Show is the only commercial radio show in the world for the visually impaired and the blind community. We are the bridge between the blind community and the sighted community. This show is sponsored by Carroll Center for the Blind in Newton, Mass. Fun, informative, educational, with trivia prizes every Sunday night. Starting February 1st, Blind and Beyond Radio Show every Sunday night, 7 to 9 p.m. on WCRN 830 a.m.
No one cares more about quality and keeping customers happy than Good as Gold Coffee Service. For over 45 years, Good as Gold has been privileged to be the preferred coffee supplier of some of the area's finest businesses. Isn't it time for you to make Good as Gold your coffee service? Whether you enjoy freshly roasted coffee beans, pre-measured packs, or single cup solutions, Good as Gold Coffee has the perfect solution for every size business. Call Good as Gold Coffee today at 1-800-322-0439. goodasgold.com.
right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the time we have left together at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Text line is also running 617-297-8388. When you text that number, it does appear on the screen right here in the studio. Try to work it into the conversation. And I just want to fill in because we made, with Mark's call, I made reference to red flag laws. And for those that might not be up on that vernacular, the red flag law, or it's also known as extreme risk protection orders, ERPOs. And those allow the courts to temporarily confiscate firearms from individuals deemed a risk to themselves or others. These laws enable law enforcement, family members, and sometimes medical professionals to petition for the removal of firearms without prior notice to the individual. For obvious reasons, right? So who can petition? Well, law enforcement. And they'll do that in a situation that they come across, usually like a domestic dispute, or family members. So family members, and if you look at this particular situation, I'm talking about the shooting in Rhode Island, there was a history of domestic violence. There was a messy divorce. There were all kinds of red flags, literally, for them to be looking at. And if at any time any of these family members went to the authorities and said, you know, he has guns, he has a permit to carry, but look at this behavior. Again, not on the fact of just simply saying, I'm in the wrong body, I should have been born a female. That doesn't merit enough. But when you combine that with the behavior, it would certainly fall within the parameters of the red flag laws. And in some states, medical professionals and even educators can file petitions. So if a doctor, a family member, the law enforcement, a police officer, to anything from a traffic stop to a domestic dispute to a disturbance at Walmart comes in, and they find that this person is acting very strange or out of the norm, and they have guns, it is not uncommon in a lot of those cases for that protection order to be put in place. And yeah, they'll show up and they confiscate. Now, in theory, you'll get them back at some point when a doctor signs off and so forth. So they're there, and it sounds like they were ignored here. But see, this is where we're full circle, because I think sometimes when it's somebody with gender dysphoria and it's about what they're going through, that aspect of their life, are doctors or family members hesitant to speak up because they feel the blowback of being bigoted or homophobic. And by the way, transgender has nothing to do with homosexuality. That's a whole nother show on that one. But is that what they're afraid of? And ex parte orders means that these initial orders can be issued without the respondent's knowledge. And of course, if they got a heads up and there's a big hearing, they've got plenty of time to do either something stupid or even just to hide the weapons. And these orders, by the way, under the red flag, typically lasting from a few days to a few weeks until a hearing can be held. And then if you can establish in front of a court that somebody overreacted, and trust me, there have been times where a spouse has pulled this trigger on this, no pun intended or anything there. In the red flag laws, the temporary protection order was utilized, and the license was suspended, the weapons were all confiscated and so forth, only to find out later there truly wasn't a real mental health issue. It was revenge. It was pettiness from the spouse, using what they thought was a tool in the toolbox. And that's happened a lot. That's why a hearing very quickly is needed to determine, are you Are you trying to get at the spouse? Are you trying to get with no real thing there? So that happens, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. Ken's waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Hello, Joe. I have to check as to what you have seen. Have you seen Robert's daughter speaking to the press?
No, I did not. Please fill me in.
It was as though she hadn't even been at the incident. She may not have been there. She spoke very calmly and firmly that her father did it.
Okay.
He is mentally ill.
The daughter said my father's mentally ill.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Oh, I did not see that.
Did you see the video of the shooting?
I did see the clip of somebody must have been filming, the ice, the hockey game for themselves. I saw that, but only that one.
Where you saw somebody in very colorful outfit reach over, brought out he had two pink guns. He shot with one and then with the second shot himself. And have you seen pictures of the guy in regular life? Did you know that he was 58 years old and he's very rugged?
Yeah, very masculine, rugged looking. Again, this is where we have, to me, a lot of times this is woman face. They you know what I'm saying? And did you say he had the pink gun?
Yes, he had two pink guns.
See, why a pink gun? To me, that's because they've decided that they're a female in a male body. They really do think that requires me to grow up my hair, because he was wearing, the pictures I seen of him were from a while ago, but he was wearing female clothing, but with a 5 o'clock shadow. Good.
Yes. And I am disgusted by the two words that everybody's repeating. Family dispute. Why are the family just as guilty as him? That is disgusting.
Wow.
They're sweeping it under the rug. And the next story they tell is of Jesse Jackson dying. Now, isn't that a coincidence? A totally opposite story, because we got to sweep it under the rug and listen to the governor who says, oh, it's gun violence. That's not the story at all. The medical facility should be sued up the yin-yang.
Well, to my point earlier, Ken, I mean, I covered the story of the person detransitioning, got a $2 million award a few weeks ago. And I think we're going to see more of these. And I agree with you, because I've said all along, you got to go after these doctors who perform these surgeries, often amputating, removing genitalia, breasts, etc. And to me, that does not seem medically ethical, especially on a minor. I think every one of these doctors should refuse, even with parental consent, to do this on a minor. These are the same people in the same breath, Ken, who are telling us, as it's true, the mind isn't totally, our brains aren't totally developed until about 25. And, we've got to leave them on the parents' health insurance and so forth until 27. But they can make a call at 12 years old about a life-altering surgery while they're still watching cartoons? Seriously?
This one, Joe, was worth $200 million. But you know what? We both know that would never happen. We know why. Because any lawyer in New England daring to take out that side their business would be destroyed, wouldn't it?
It would be nice if there was a lawyer that had the courage to do that. And there are some. I mean, that one detransitioner. Yeah, well, that's the problem. Look at New England with such a blue section of the city, section of the country. Look at Republican or even undemocratic representation. Bernie Sanders is actually unenrolled, right? He's an independent or something. He votes totally Democrat and so forth. But do we have it? I mean, hopefully somebody like this Deaton guy, can pull off Markey's seat. I just, what an uphill battle. I don't understand why the voters, and I know, Ken, people of common sense and more central or conservative exist outside the big cities, of course, because if we look at Trump's vote, what he's gotten for votes is very respectable in Massachusetts. And a lot of it has to do, I think, with the gerrymandering. We go back to that issue, right? I've always said the way to handle gerrymandering is we've got the technology now. Let AI draw the lines with no voting history being calculated in here, no party affiliation being calculated in. We just simply tell the AI, here are the addresses of qualified voters. Here's the state. Draw the line so all in whatever it is, 9 congressmen, 10 congressmen, whatever the state has, the population is divided equally. And that's it. That's how it should be done. And now look at all these states that are doing mid-decade censuses to change seats, to gain or lose seats. But we're off track. Back to the point about the Rhode Island shooter. The red flag laws failed this situation, Ken.
I got an answer for you on that, Joe. Mark is right. He's pointing out we don't have equal justice. We have woke think who are never dealt with justice, and we have conservatives who are dealt with put in jail when they never should be.
No argument here, Ken. Final thought?
No, it's just disgusting, and we have to point it out to the people calmly and firmly. You have to protect families who have a nut job because they're going to die otherwise, like this fourth family. Two have died and 2 are likely to.
Yeah, 100%. Ken, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. Always a good call. Yeah, the families are the victim here, but they had some responsibility to address this guy's behavior over years. This isn't a recent transgender or transition, I should say. And the divorces happened years ago. There's been domestic disputes. Obviously, the family couldn't deal with this well, and it caused issues. So the question becomes, what did they do? And what was their role in this? How did they play a role in this? That's something to be addressed. Hey, we're going to take our break, third break. We'll come back for fourth and final segment. 2 minutes, 10 seconds, folks. Stick with us.
We're still having fun, and you're still the one.
Girton Graphics and Awards has been the name in custom apparel, t-shirts, embroidery, trophies, and awards. Whether you need custom t-shirts for your business, sports teams uniforms, thousands of personalized promotional products, or trophies that truly shine, Girton Graphics and Awards has you covered. Operating right here in Worcester, Girton Graphics and Awards takes pride in their craftsmanship, unbeatable prices, and top-notch service. Their reputation, often imitated, never equaled. Stop by the showroom on Southbridge Street next to Coney Island Hot Dogs and see why Girton Graphics and Awards has been the trusted choice for over 50 years. Call 508-754-0200, 508-754-0200. Visit GirtonGraphics.com, GUERTIN graphics.com, or swing by today. Girton Graphics and Awards. We're still the one.
This is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, right here on WCRN. Like all business owners, I'm interested in why people choose to work with Boston Independence Group. So I asked my clients. The most common response, Jerry does not try to be all things to all people. Boston Independence Group is specialized, focused solely on retirement planning. My customers enjoy the difference. We do one thing, and we do it exceptionally well. Help other people live better in retirement. That's it. If you're ready to retire or making plans to retire, we can do for you what we've done for hundreds of other retirees throughout New England. Live better in retirement. Just give me a call. I'll show you how. My toll-free number is 877-772-1776. Again, that number is 877-772-1776. And you can visit us on the web at bostonindependencegroup.com. bostonindependencegroup.com.
BostonIndependenceGroup.com. That's right. Jerry Doherty, Making Money Last, every weekday at 11 o'clock. Tune into Jerry's show. Better yet, go attend one of his college seminars. You get a lot of great information in it. I think Ted attended one of those too, didn't you?
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
took my bride of some 48 years.
Date night. Qualifies as date night in my book.
2 nights. 2 nights.
2 nights. That's right. Man, you're good for 6 months now. All right, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines are open and available. 508-871-7000. And yeah, so the Reverend Jesse Jackson has passed away. Ken made reference to that. I don't think he died to cover up that story, folks. But the point is, he passed on, 84 years old, 2-time presidential candidate, first black candidate, a legitimate guy really running. Apparently he died peacefully at home, surrounded by loved ones after a long battle with progressive supranuclear palsy. That's a very rare neurodegenerative condition similar to Parkinson's. He's been fighting that for over a decade. First diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2017, confirmed as PSP, hospitalized. Jesse Jackson was born. Jesse Lewis Burns in 1941. And it was in very segregated Greenville, South Carolina. He faced the Jim Crow head on from day one. He was out of wedlock birth. He rose above a lot of that. We know most of his history. It wasn't totally, I guess, all roses and stuff. There was a lot of controversy with Jackson over the years, right? He had the Hymietown comment that kind of put it to, look, it was 1984, I think it was. And he made that comment about Hymietown and Jews as Hymies. It was in a private conversation with a reporter, but there is no private conversation with a reporter. When will you people figure that out? And there was widespread condemnation for anti-Semitism. He apologized in a synagogue, but initially he refused to denounce Farrakhan's threats against critics. Remember that? Straining relations with the Jewish community for years. Although later he did support some Jewish candidates and causes, like Joe Lieberman in 2000. In 2001, Jackson admitted to fathering a daughter born in 99. And the mother was one of those Rainbow Push staffers, Karen Stanford. And that Rainbow Coalition, that was his organization. And he had a public apology for that, temporary withdrawal from activism, suspension of his CNN show, Both Sides with Jesse Jackson. And then the organization paid Stanford severance and child-related expenses. Because, again, if you hadn't put that together yet, it was a staffer in this massive multi-million-dollar organization that he had, that he led. So it pretty much is the definition. Sexual harassment, you father a child with an employee. So yes, there's accountability, not just individually for the father who fathers the child, but what was the power dynamic? And of course, the organization is going to pay. But also, Jesse Jackson he had some tax issues for years, right? He had outstanding tax liens and unpaid taxes, yet he was frequently a guest at the White House, even while that was going on. There was always criticism for that. So the tax and financial issues plagued his organization as well. Operation Push, that accrued significant debt in the 80s. And in 2005, The Federal Election Commission fined Jackson and the Democratic National Committee a couple $100,000 for campaign finance violations tied to the improper fundraising and expenditures during his runs. That was always a theme. I remember over the years of covering news and covering Jackson, there was always these tax issues with his personal taxes, the organization taxes, and then he was using the funds of these organizations, Push and Rainbow, for limousines and dining out and clothing, even a lot of things. One would say, that's you. People donated to this don't expect to be paying for a stretch limo or $1,000 suit or dinners out at expensive restaurants. So campaign finance violations tied to the fundraising and the expenditures during. In investigations during the 2000s, probed the Rainbow Bush for alleged misuse of nonprofit funds. And of course, that would include those payments to the mother of the child, Stanford, right? And ties to his half-brother, Noah Robinson. And he had criminal activities. He was convicted of racketeering in 92. A lot of critics would actually use the term shakedown tactics. And of course, Jackson denied wrongdoing and emphasized the organization's positive impact. That's always a technique, right? Sure, they're this and they're that. They're criminal, they're pedophile, they're a human trafficker. But look at the good that they've done. Overall, Jackson's legacy is one of inspiration and certainly imperfection. He did receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2000 from Bill Clinton for his civil rights work. The NAACP's Singer Medal in 89. Honorary degrees from numerous universities. And of course, he's been praised as a pathfinder who reshaped the Democratic Party. Increased voter engagement. Absolutely, he did on that. No question about that. Fought for the voiceless in some cases, certainly when it helped him. And let's face it, Jesse Jackson's oratory, evident in speeches like Keep Hope Alive, one of his most famous, right? Motivated generations. Yet detractors criticize his polarizing rhetoric, like Hymietown remark, the financial scandals, the personal lapses, viewing him more as a showman than a sustainer of movements. But despite the flaws, Jackson's efforts undeniably advanced equality on many levels, leaving an indelible mark on American history. No question about that, folks. 508-871-7000, join the conversation. You have a few more minutes if you want to jump in on something. And I only have a few minutes, but one of the things that came across my desk is this, the National Grid's whopping 342 million gas rate increase request, right? And Deaton and some others out there, non-democratic politicians and observers are actually linking it directly to Ed Markey's push for the Green New Deal agenda. Is the whole stupidity around the Green New Deal? I thought that was dead. It's apparently still has some life in it. And it's not just about the higher bills that we're getting hit with here in Massachusetts. It's about the policies from D.C. that are hitting us right here at home. Especially when a lot of these championing them live comfortably somewhere else. Right? National Grid filed a petition with Mass Department of Public Utilities to hike its gas distribution rates. And remember, I know Maura Healey is trying to tell us all these reasons why it's so expensive. And she's actually denied, after bragging a couple of years ago, and we got the videos. I think I put them on Facebook. Go to my Facebook show, where she brags at a forum once how she stopped 2 pipelines from coming into Massachusetts. And you could tell in her head, she thought that was a great thing. because she was appeasing to the far left green people, right? Ignoring the devastating consequences to middle class Massachusetts and New England people for that matter. So now this hike has directly connected to the gas distribution rates, aiming to rake in an additional $340 million revenue. And if this is approved, the DPU has suspended the changes until the 1st of December 2026, end of the year, for review. Now, this could mean an 8.4% jump in residential customers that are in the Boston gas territory. That's going to add about $24 to the average monthly bill at 9.4% for those in the colonial gas area. There'll be about $25 for them. And they say, hey, this is needed for infrastructure upgrades, safety compliance, fixing past billing issues. So we've messed up on billing in the past, so we got to charge you more so we can fix our mistakes. But the critics are pointing fingers at broader energy policies that are driving up costs across the board. But this goes to the Reduction Act bill, remember, which was just the Green New Deal relabeled and pushed through. And in the name of green and climate change, unreasonable. Look, Mark Rubio addressed this, and I maybe tomorrow we'll get into this at the Munich gathering, because AOC certainly, if you didn't hear her, I got to tell you, you got to listen to it. She was asked about Taiwan situation. Hold on.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move? I think that this is such a, I think that this is a,
yeah, you get it. You get it. I think our presidential bid is over. That wraps up today's show, folks. Joe Mangiacotti. Follow me at Joe Mangi Show. Show is turned into a podcast and distributed as such. Have a great night. Back tomorrow, folks.